It is a truth, universally acknowledged, that a librarian in possession of a good amount of sense must be ignored in order to make the plot happen. Or so it always seemed to Thornquill.
I hate my life.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
A heavy sigh greeted this insistence.
Okay, I'll bite. Why do you hate your life this week?
In answer, Thorny allowed his forehead to thump onto the countertop.
Is that your final answer? Succinct, yet unilluminating.
Go away.
The muffled nature of the response did nothing to quash its vehemence.
See, I could do that, but then I'd be a bad friend. Also, I'm bored, and you're usually more entertaining than this.
Chaotic, I swear to Celestia, if you don't get out of my library,
You'll what?
I'll do something terrible.
Oh, I'm shaking in my saddlebags.
Thorny tilted his head just enough to fix one baleful eye on the other stallion. Chaotic threw up his forehooves as if shot.
Ugh, he got me! I'm hit!
You're a butthead is what you are.
Chaotic shot him a 1,000-gigawatt smile, made all the more rakish by his carefully curled beard and earring.
Seriously though, dude, what's wrong? Anything I can do to help?
My life is an endlessly repeating void of pain, suffering, and late fees on a cosmic level against which I am entirely unable to fight, owing to authorial inconsistency and general sadism. There is no salve for my kind of pain.
I have cupcakes? Would that do the trick?
Chaotic had the good grace to wince. He tapped his chin thoughtfully.
You know what you need? A vacation. You and Amiki should totally go away for a weekend mini break to Manhattan or something.
She's all backed up with work for the next millennium. Getting her out of her workroom is impossible at times like this.
Oh. How about a guy's weekend then?
Given how often I end up being the recipient of bad luck whenever we all get together, no thank you.
Really? I hear there's a book convention this weekend. A.K. Yearling herself is going to be there doing a signing.
No.
Shit, dude, you have got it bad.
Chaotic's downturned mouth lost its teasing edge.
Talk to me. What brought this on?
Thorny sighed. Clearly, Chaotic was not going to go away no matter how much he was entreated to take a long walk off a short pier.
It's March.
What's that got to do with anything?
It's March.
Still not following you, buddy.
He gave his most imperious glare, of which Voldemort, Emperor Palpatine, and P.L. Travers herself would have been proud.
It is March.
He enunciated slowly.
Late March.
Understanding rose into Chaotic's face like a corpse surfacing in a pond.
Oh. Right.
Yes. Now you understand. It won't be long now before this month ticks over into the next, and we're dragged into some awful shenanigans with our friends, during which I will bear the brunt of torturous antics and funny diatribes that have rendered my characterization to that of screaming and crying and yelling for my wife and not much else. The way things have been going over the past few years, this time around, I may cross the boundary into just wetting myself for comedic effect.
That's not true.
Chaotic cut himself off.
Okay, so maybe it is true, but hey, no need to be so down about it. It's just one day out of the year, right?
You weren't saying that after last time.
Admittedly, my hooves are still pruny from all that washing up at Sugar Cube Corner, but I can admit I brought that on myself. No pony messes with the goody booty. Lesson learned. I've grown since then. I'm mature. I had an arc.
Off screen?
Yeah, off... Hey! Low blow, dude.
Thorny groaned and let his face make full contact with the counter again.
What?
That's Scribbler death for not writing actual lines for me to mumble out, motherfucker.
What?
For once, I just want to be left out of things. Is that so much to ask? On April 1st, I just want a place where I can, I don't fucking know, sit and read a book in peace and be left totally and completely out of all the shenaniganry.
Is that even a word?
Fuck off, Chaotic.
Well, excuse me, princess.
Thorny heard the distinctive sound of hooves hopping down from the countertop and heading for the exit.
I'll just get right to fucking off then, shall I?
The door opened and shut. Silence reigned. Thorny groaned. Then he fell into the portal that opened in the countertop.
Oh, fuck my life!
For the briefest moment, the world on the other side of the portal was laid bare before his eyes. A flat, mirror-smooth plane of visible blackness, stretching in all directions like some unfathomable sheet of glass. Whether the portal had deposited him miles above it, or mere feet, it was impossible to tell. But either way, it was hurtling towards him at a really rather distressing speed. Thornquill squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the inevitable crushing impact. It never came. Chest heaving, heart racing, he opened one tentative eye, and blinked, sitting up straighter. For he was, in fact, sitting, comfortably no less, in a high-backed armchair in the middle of what seemed to be a massive, otherworldly library. Rows upon rows of neatly stacked shelves stretched off in every direction, towering impossibly into the dim recesses of a shadowy but recognizably vaulted ceiling above. Beside him, a low table was also stacked with books. A quick glance was enough to tell Thornquill that these had never known the warmth of Celestia's sun. His eyes drifted upwards. Across the table, a book in one hoof and a cup of tea in the other, wearing a look of bemusement and what looked for all the world like a tartan bathrobe, was
Cygnus?
a Stygian eyebrow quirked over one lamp-like, unblinking eye.
Hello there, Thornquill. To what do I owe the pleasure?
That's what I'd like to know.
Thorny's eyes flicked to the ceiling far above. Of the portal, there was no sign.
What, you're telling me you didn't open that gaping, sucking hole in reality that brought me here?
Indeed I did not. And I'll thank you to keep the invective to a minimum. Some of my best friends are holes.
There was a deeply unsettling susurrus of agreement from the shadows. Thornquill shivered, but Cygnus ignored them, setting his book and tea on two passing tendrils of darkness, and settling comfortably into a chair Thorny could swear hadn't been there a moment before.
I probably don't need to know what you mean by that. Alright, so if you didn't invite me, what am I doing here? So far as I know, no one's ever been able to get into your personal dimension. Not even Discord.
Well, I never said you weren't invited, just that I didn't bring you here. But the archive is open to anyone, if their need is great and their disposition sufficiently unsilly. So, no Discord then. Far too obsessed with turning things into a dimension measuring contest, the prat. And you would have been welcome any time.
Thorny was unmoved.
I'm flattered, but can we get to the point? I've got a lot of brooding, complaining, and hiding to do before April Fool's Day.
It is getting rather close to the end of March, isn't it?
Sadly, yes. Now, if there's nothing else...
Thorny made to stand, but Cygnus stopped him with a hoof.
Now, hang on a moment. Just because you found yourself here by accident doesn't mean this isn't exactly where you need to be. Sit. Let's talk.
Thorny gave him his best librarian scowl, peering down his nose at the equine-shaped shadow with unrestrained contempt.
Uh-huh. Putting aside the Dumbledore crap, why should I listen to anything you have to say? You've been just as much a willing participant in the the shenanigans as any of the rest of them.
Participant, yes. Willing, decidedly not.
Cygnus grimaced, and the walls of the library seemed to shimmer slightly.
After last year's indignities, I battened down the hatches rather more firmly than usual. Though evidently I neglected to iron out the friends welcome in time of greatest need clause. If I had to guess, incidentally, that's what brought you here. April is coming, and you needed a place to bury your head. The archive sensed your, let's call it distress, and provided.
Thorny scoffed, but settled back into his seat nonetheless.
Oh, what? You're going to play at being a psychiatrist now?
No. Feigning that level of medical expertise would be as irresponsible and self-aggrandizing as it would be undignified.
Cygnus smiled humorlessly.
I might, however, be willing to offer some friendly advice.
Friendly? Since when are we friends? We've literally never interacted on screen prior to this.
Operative word, on screen.
Yes, whatever. Can we get this over with?
Of course.
Cygnus rose, and suddenly they were standing at the head of a long, low-ceilinged gallery lined with painted scenes.
Walk with me?
Thorny sighed.
Pretty sure you just told me to get comfortable in that chair so we could talk.
I reserve my right to narrative pacing. Do you want my help or not?
Okay, what could possibly go wrong?
They strode slowly down the corridor, almost shoulder to shoulder. Cygnus kept up only a leisurely pace, and Thorny found himself having to willfully slow his steps to stay level with him. Polite, surely, but some less frustrated part of him also told him it would be wise to stay within reach of the master of this bizarre and slightly unsettling realm. Pieces of darkness seemed to reach out and caress Cygnus as he went past, as though the very fabric of the place was alive and sentient.
Tell me again, how did you even come to live in Equestria, Cygnus?
It's a long and incredibly boring story, and for the purposes of this plotline, we'll pretend that I already told you and move swiftly on.
Wow, what a fascinating and immersive backstory you have.
Quite. Tea?
Thorny looked down at the cup tucked neatly into the grasp of his wing.
Where did you...
Do not question the tea, dear boy.
Thorny, wisely, chose not to question the tea.
You know, I meant what I said about battening down the hatches. I've taken extra precautions this year. No more mental transfers or idiotic shipping frippery. April 1st will come, and I will be here, comfortably, with my tea and my biscuits and my books, whilst whatever town you miserable ponies actually live in burns itself to the ground. Again.
Cygnus went on conversationally. He turned his head towards Thorny, unblinking. The expression sat somewhere between disconcerting and gibberingly frightening.
And if I thought you'd actually take me up on it, I'd offer to let you stay here to weather the storm. You've been through enough as it is.
And why wouldn't I take you up on it?
Cygnus sighed. He came to a stop next to one of the paintings.
Because, Thorny, that's not what you want.
He gestured to the canvas, and Thorny, after only a moment's hesitation, looked. It was not, as he had sorely hoped, a mere painting. The canvas roiled and bulged, molten hues swelling over each other, mixing and parting and rolling over and over in a steady rhythm, playing out the same 4 or 5 seconds of time over and over again. He recognized this particular scene, and the one next to that, as he tore his eyes from the first, and the one after that, and the one after that. He was the centerpiece of every scene. In the first, he scrambled backwards off a hospital bed advanced on by Goody. In the next, he stood alone on a stage, ceaselessly singing about sandwiches. Yet another showed him, hanging by his tail, screaming, before being swept into a maelstrom of green magic that ripped his soul from his body and dumped it into someone else's. Every depiction was unflattering. Every iteration of his face, a mask of disappointment and shame. Thorny startled backward, appalled. Finally, he tore his eyes away from the canvases, focusing all his attention on Cygnus's blank, luminous facsimiles.
What did you say this place was again?
The archive.
The faintest hint of a smile crossed the darker, not a pony, but for the sake of narrative ease, we'll keep referring to him that way, pony's muzzle.
My home. Every story, every masterpiece, every cautionary tale worth saving. Across the worlds.
And why are you showing me this?
Because I need to know whether what I suspect to be true is.
Cygnus tapped the frame of the nearest painting, and the hospital scene seemed to ripple.
If you could change this, would you? If you could stop the yearly depredations perpetrated on our friends, would you? If you could wake up on April 1st with nothing to fear, would you?
How?
You let me worry about that part. All I need from you is an answer, Thornquill.
His eyes bored into Thorny with an intensity he had never seen from the hazy, equine-shaped figure before. Thorny cleared his throat.
Would it be a time travel thing? Because I hate time travel things, you know. No one ever gets temporal mechanics right, and they always have huge ramifications, and then I'd be the one obligated to go and fix them all.
Cygnus pursed non-existent lips.
I'm going to pretend you didn't just insinuate that I'd be stupid enough to make this a poorly written time travel thing. But no, this would be more along the lines of... let's call it a unilateral motion to end the April Fool's cycle for good and all.
Unilateral? Hold on, does that mean you wouldn't want to bring the rest of the gang in on this?
The last time cosmic forces were brought to bear at this time of year, Wooten tried to turn all of Equestria into his own private sex farm. Do you really want to risk bringing the castle of compensatory schlongs back into the mix?
That's not a combination of words I would have ever expected to hear from you, but I take your point.
Thorny shook his head, sighing.
I mean, I get it, I'm with you, this has to stop, but why do you care? You're not Mr. April Fool's butt monkey for life. What does it matter to you what happens?
Cygnus stared at him for a moment, the scenes behind him continuing to loop endlessly.
You're familiar with the concept of a literary cycle, I take it.
Well, of course, shouldn't everyone know that?
You'd be surprised, but humor me. What would you say are the prime elements of such a cycle?
Thorny blinked at him for a moment, then shook his head.
I can't believe I'm discussing narrative theory with some Lovecraft reject when April Fool's is right around the corner. Just let me out of this dimension, Cygnus. I need to go bury my head under some pillows and cry myself to sleep before midnight strikes on March 31st.
Number one, Lovecraft is our dear Luna's shtick. Let's not go stepping on her toes. Number two, hear me out.
Luna the Night Princess or Luna the Bat Pony?
Thestral. Though I understand Her Eminence has taken up correspondence with some of the old gods of late. Pen-palling, I think she called it. Very quaint.
Bat Pony. They're called Bat Ponies, not Thestrals.
And you think changelings are sweet, blameless, and anything but the vile, blood-sucking monstrosities they are. We're all allowed the occasional quirk of perception. But we're getting distracted here. The elements of a literary cycle. Your thoughts, please.
Thorny sighed, rubbing his eyes with a concessional expulsion of breath.
All right. A literary cycle is a group of stories focused on common figures, often, though not necessarily always, based on mythical figures or loosely on historical ones. A fictional cycle is often referred to as a mythos. So, regarding my thoughts on that, let's see. Cycles should be mythologically formative in scope, emphasize characters and events as cultural icons or archetypes, be pretty consistent across retellings over time.
He looked at Cygnus tiredly.
You're obviously looking for something in particular here. Am I close?
You are, but what about the status quo? With the exception of whatever the ending to such a cycle is, the death of the king, the fall of a pantheon, the status quo is pretty much God, wouldn't you say?
Yes, that's kind of the whole point. Archetypes, flat characters playing out fables.
And what if I told you that some dispassionate, unreasoned force out there was trying to push the same narrative structure onto your world, your life?
I'd tell you to stop being so damn meta that our audience are struggling to follow our conversation and demand to let me go home.
Oh, don't give me that. You know you've seen it. One day out of every year, the hour is struck and chaos reigns. Diabolus ex machina, the improbable insane situation unfolds. Lives are ruined, towns are burned, psyches shattered. Deus ex machina, the improbable insane solution presents itself. Lives are rebuilt, towns shored up from nothing, and psyches remain shattered. Nothing is resolved, no one grows, everyone loses, and no one is any the wiser. The cycle continues.
Cygnus took a step closer to Thornquill and looked him dead in the eye.
Are you prepared to face that every year from now until eternity? Or are you going to help me break the wheel?
Thornquill paused. He looked at the portraits lining the walls. The humiliations, the depredations, the unnecessity of it all. Was he content to let April Fools keep happening? Was he okay with not even trying to fight back? He felt his mouth harden into a thin, angry line.
All right. Count me in.
Cygnus's grin became razor sharp.
Toodle pip, dear boy.
He murmured ominously. Scribbler hunkered down in her hotel room.
They'll never find me here.
Briefly, she checked the locks on the door and windows again.
Fuckers.
She picked up a book and, reflexively stroking the spine, held it to her chest like a shield.
Absolute fuckers.
Who is?
She fell off the bed.
Whoops. Sorry.
She scrambled her hooves and backed into the corner.
Oh, no. No, get out now.
Starryflame pouted. The glowing portal behind her somewhat diminished the effect. Through it, Scribbler could see directly into the Alicorn realm, which sparkled and undulated into a sea of pretty lights and ethereal mist. Anyone who did not know Starry would have thought her some divine being, stepping down from on high to perform miracles in the world of mortal ponies. Scribbler, however, knew better.
But why?
You know why.
I really don't.
Scribbler pointed at the calendar on the wall. Starry squinted at it.
Huh?
I am sick to the back teeth of weird shit happening to me on this day every year. This year, I'm taking a stand. This year, I'm staying here in nice, boring, safe Trottingham, where it's nice, boring, and safe from all you fuckers.
You mean friends.
I mean fuckers.
Starry tilted her head to one side.
My Inner Xena is saying something about the way you phrase that.
Get out!
Scribbler all but shrieked. Starry treated her to her very best puppy dog eyes.
But
Out!
But I was just
Out!
But you can't just
Out! Out! Out!
Fine.
Starry trundled back through the portal.
But you know that hiding from a problem doesn't make it go away, right?
It's working for me. Now, out! I want to be left alone this year. Alone, unaccompanied, by myself, solo.
Starry sniffed theatrically. It turned into a squeak when Scribbler's hoof met her rump, propelling her the last few feet through the portal and back into the dimension reserved solely for alicorns.
And stay out.
Wow, you really are a bitch.
The portal closed on Starry's parting words.
Great. Now she has no trouble calling me that.
Scribbler sighed and went back to pick up her book. She checked the locks again, still intact. She felt marginally better. At least until the thrum of magic sounded behind her again.
Starry, I swear I am going to turn you into a pair of socks and walk you through a field of landmines.
She turned.
Oh. Fuck my life.
The thrum ended, leaving behind an empty hotel room.